Hello everybody and welcome to the last list video of 2023. This Christmas season has been great for the channel, so I want to just thank you for all of your support over the last few days for our investigator tier list, which I know all of you enjoy so well. But I got one more list video for all of your entertainment, and that is my 5 favorite cards in 2023. If you don't know, I actually was doing a challenge this year where could I play every card in 2023. I have a video coming out on Saturday where we do the final roundup. Spoiler alert, I have completed it. I did play every player card in 2023, which was pretty gas. It was a tough challenge, but I did it. But I loved doing it as much as I, was overwhelmed by it at times. It was really fun, and I discovered a lot about this game in the process. This was a big year of ARKHAM discovery for me as a player, and I learned a lot of really cool things. Some of those things we're going to be talking about in this video, but I looked back over all my deck lists that I played this year, and there were a lot, and I looked at the 5 cards that I either found the most enjoyment with, or alternatively that just made it into the most of my decks that weren't like generic staples. Because I like generic staples, like, like Eureka, Burning the Midnight Oil, 2 secret cards that I play in the majority of my secret decks, but they're not like my favorite cards to play. I think they're good cards, but they weren't exactly like game-changing for me. I've already pretty been settled on their opinion and not much has changed for them. So these are 5 cards that I personally loved playing in 2023. So why don't we dive in and get this show on the road. First up, our number 5 is M1918 Bar. So 5 cost, 4 experience. It's an asset, takes up 2 hand slots, item, weapon, firearm, 8 ammo. As an action, spend 1 to 5 ammo and fight. You get plus X fist for this attack. Instead of its standard damage, this attack deals X damage. X is the amount of ammo spent as part of this ability's cost. This was actually a weapon that I never played before this year. If you don't know me and my playstyle, my big thing is consistency. I just like all my cards to do 100% of their job 100% of the time. And if you ever run out of ammo on this, or you miss and draw the autofail, it requires a lot of moving pieces to make sure that the gun is always loaded. And the gun is always doing it, and the gun is always hitting. And that is not the kind of style that I like. I would rather just, play a melee weapon, or alternatively just play a lot of small guns that I can, be able to rotate in and out of. So the M1918 Bar was very tough for me. It's a tough pill for me to swallow. But because my challenge was play every card, I stuck to my guns and I played every card. And I played the M1918 Bar, and I had an absolute blast with it. In this video, I actually have deck lists. Wow. So these are deck lists all from our Patreon, which you can find down in the link. I release 2 deck lists a month. But you get a sneak peek at a bunch of deck lists here as we kind of go through it. So this was a Leo deck that I brought through Darkham Horror, and as you can see, it's basically built entirely around the M1918 Bar. We have Backpack to help find it. We have Contraband to double the ammo. The idea is that, you get it up to 8 ammo, double it to 16, and then maybe in a perfect world, double it up to 32. We have the Mauser C96 to give us some alternative weapons, a toe-to-toe to also help us fight, upgraded B-Cop to, deal that last little bit of damage as needed. But the gameplay loop for this card is actually pretty simple. We have the Snipe, which allows us to ignore the autofail token. We have the Eat Lead, which allows us to mitigate the autofail token. So you see that this deck was pretty much entirely built around the M1918 Bar. It originally started with a Bandolier, but I ultimately found that, especially with Backpack, it's kind of a non-bow, doesn't really get the job done. So I switched it out, and this was like the final form of the deck. The campaign, I never ended up finished recording it. Maybe I will, but you can actually find that again on our Patreon. But really cool deck, and I had a really fun time playing with the card. Alright, next up, this one was a little bit of a wild one for me. So I'll get to it. Otherworldly Compass. 2 cost, 2 experience, takes up a hand slot. Exhaust it. Investigate. Your location gets -X Shroud for this investigation. X is the number of reveal locations connected to your location. So, a few months ago, I recorded the Forgotten Age re-rank of all the cards, like looking at all the player cards and seeing how my opinions have changed X many years after the expansion came out. And I got to Otherworldly Compass, and I read the card, and I was like, wait a minute, I think this card might actually kind of be good. It's a repeatable flashlight that doesn't always function to a -2, but it also can potentially function up to a -4. It's like a super flashlight. You can use it once per turn, but it doesn't run out of supplies. There's a lot of things that make this card good, but also make this card bad. So people, I think, are stuck on Otherworldly Compass because it's entirely fair, right? The effect on it is actually just pretty good, but it's not great. And it's like completely fairly costed. 2 cost, 2 experience, hand slot, you can only use it once per turn. The whole thing is just fair. And when Seeker, you can kind of just do things that are just generally more unfair. I mean, even like you might be thinking, if I want the flashlight effect, why am I going to spend 2 experience on it? To that, I thought, what if we just tried to do unfair stuff with it? 2 archetypes immediately jumped out with me out to me with Otherworldly Compass. One was, of course, the test at 0. I think I haven't built it, but I'm going to build either a Min or a Daryl deck that takes advantage of Otherworldly Compass. Probably Daryl, and just, you know, is all about looping our good friend Shedalite and just using this to its full potential. But the other one I actually built, and the deck was pretty damn good. And it wasn't, I think it was a stellar showcasing for Otherworldly Compass, and that was this Trish deck that I brought to the Color Out of Oz, which you can find on the YouTube channel. So this deck was all around Otherworldly Compass. The idea was we use Backpack to dig it, Lockpicks, Eon Chart, or Lucky Cigarette Case 3 out, and then we get Lola Santiago out, and with Lola Santiago's ability, we can exhaust it. We can exhaust Otherworldly Compass, reduce our Shroud, in some cases by 5, to reduce the Shroud to 0, and then we can use Lola Santiago to grab an additional clue. Essentially doing the thing that we always want to do as players, which is get a free deduction every turn at the cost of no resources, which means this deck actually is, it's a Lola Santiago deck where we don't need to care about our resources, right? What it allows us to do is instead use the Otherworldly Compass to pass tests and, you know, get shit done. I understand completely for people who aren't sold on Otherworldly Compass, because once again, the card in and of itself is just entirely fair. I think it's like a perfectly balanced card. It's like well designed for all of its numbers. There's nothing about the card that is bad, but it's still just entirely fair, right? Like, it's just like, it's not like particularly great. It's just like a fair card. And as Bryn says, we kind of want to sometimes do more than just all right. You know, we kind of just want to do more than just fair. However, I think you can leverage Otherworldly Compass to start doing unfair things. And I think that's where the power of the card comes from. This Lola Santiago deck with Trish was absolutely wild. It was a really consistent deck, and it got the job done. Assuming that there's now an enemy at your location, you can just, like, get so many clues over time. Of course, it's also compounded by the fact that we don't need Otherworldly Compass. I think, like, if your deck needs, if it's like your only plan is getting Otherworldly Compass and, like, using that for your investigation, you're not going to really be able to go to the moon with it, right? You're kind of just going to, once again, be living that world where you're just like, this card is fair. So the idea is, how can I make it unfair, right? And I think that this is one of the 2 approaches. I am curious to try it out because I actually had a really fun time in this deck. And again, I think it's also campaign dependent. So it's like one of those things where in Color Out of Oz, when there's a lot of location connectors, basically just getting the -4s is really sick. It also has revealed locations as well. So, like, there's a lot of things that make Otherworldly Compass, once again, just, like, not read great. But it turned me into a believer. In that re-review video, I said, I think this card's actually good, and I think you can do some cool things with it, and I proved my theory. I'm like an ARKHAM scientist, so to speak. And I think that, I think you should try it too if you're interested. And I'm curious if there's any other additional homes than the ones that I've pointed out here, the Tested Zero and Lola. Because those are basically looking for... Those decks are basically asking, how can I repeatedly use my resources without spending them, right? And a flashlight will eventually run out, so you're like, okay, I'm going to scavenge it back, yada, yada, yada. But with Otherworldly Compass, you actually don't have to, right? If there's a location with 3 connections, your 3-shroud locations are now 0. And I think that's a pretty good effect that you shouldn't neglect when it comes time to it. So this is basically me saying, like, hey, you should maybe try Otherworldly Compass. You might discover something that I didn't with it. But I don't also knock you for thinking the card is just, like, kind of just not great, because it isn't. It isn't great on its own. It isn't great on its own for sure. But it gets better. It gets better when paired. It's like wine and cheese, you know? Or cheese and grapes. I just want a cheese board now. All right. Let's go to our number 3 card, which is, this one's, I'm going to just say it. Bryn was right. All right? Bryn was right. Sleight of Hand. So, 1 cost event, it's fast, play only during your turn, put an item asset into play from your hand at the end of your turn. If that asset is still in play, return it to your hand. Honestly, I actually don't know what the taboo is off the top of my head. It might be a level 1 to 3 card. Yeah, a level 0 to 3. A level 0 to 3 item asset into play from your hand. Right, okay. So, this card is super fun to play with. I have 2 decks that I played it in. There actually might be a third that I didn't end up saving a deck list for. But I had a lot of fun in playing this both as a Kluver and also as a Goon. So the first one we got here is a Winifred Sleight of Hand deck. The video that I did this in has not made it onto the channel yet. I don't know if it ever will, or it might just go on the Patreon. But I had Sleight of Hand into Thieves' Kit 3, into Haste, into Quick Thinking, into Honed Instinct, into just go, 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 take 1,000,000 actions with Thieves' Kit and make 1,000,000 money. So there was a turn where you... So basically the goal of the deck is Sleight of Hand in your Thieves' Kit 3. Then you go nuts using it to investigate. And then you use Haste to get additional actions. You put some Quick Thinking into it as well, so you can take additional actions. And you're succeeding by 2 or more is the goal. And you're going to just get a bunch of resources. So for one resource, you gain like 6 to 8 resources. And it feels pretty good. Feels pretty good, not going to lie. And it's one of those things where, like, the turn where I did it, I felt really good. And then the best thing is afterwards, you just play the Thieves' Kit. You just play the Thieves' Kit and you know, use it, right? So, like, you Sleight of Hand in one, you play it, you use it, then you play it and you use it, and you just keep it going and going and going. It's a cool deck. It was a cool deck, and I enjoyed it. However, I also got this Tony Morgan Unkillable God deck that I played this in, where I did the Bryn thing. And I Sleight of Handed in a Lupara. Bryn has been saying for eons, Sleight of Hand Lupara is a hell of a drug. And I'll say it again, Bryn's right. It was a really fun deck. This deck was kind of nuts too, because I took so much damage and horror and healed it all. I was Unkillable God, and that's why the deck is titled this. But Sleight of Hand has been in the game for a long time, so I don't have like much to add to it, other than the fact that the card is as fun as Bryn wrote it up, and it's really good with Lupara. So Bryn's not wrong, and you should try it out for yourselves. All right, my number 2 card. My number 2 card. So these, I was going for, this is actually ordered as well for the amount of time I played it as well. This one right here, it's a newer card from Scarlet Keys. The last 2 actually are from Scarlet Keys. See if you can guess what they are. This was one of my most played cards of the year, and I actually played it in a good number of decks as well. And that's Grim Memoir. This is a 3-cost, 1-hand asset, item tome, 4 secrets. Spend a secret as an action to investigate. You get +2 book for this investigation. If you succeed by 2 or more, you may draw 1 card. So, obviously this card works really well with Daisy, right? This card is really sick with Daisy because it's a tome action and she can use it for free, and that's really nice. Basically turning her extra action into a Rex action with a card draw. And when I say a Rex action, it's basically turning your action into a deduction, right? You're getting an additional clue, you have to do a test, but you also are probably drawing a card in the process, which is really sick. But it's also good in other places. It's good in Rex Murphy. This gives you the 2 that you need to succeed by to get your additional clue with your ability. It's good in Harvey Walters because it draws a card. It's good in Minty Fan because, you know, you want to draw cards in Minty Fan and you want to get clues. This card is actually, like, probably one of the most quiet but best cards in the Scarlet Keys, right? Because there's obviously better cards, I think, than Grim Memoir, but Grim Memoir just has so much juice packed into one card, right? 3 resources, and you're getting 4 clues, and you're drawing probably 3 to 4 cards, right? That's pretty good. That's pretty good. Seekers continue to impress. They continue to impress. But I got some deck lists for you. So this first one was actually the Harvey deck that I played with Eric through Eric's blind play of the Path to Carcosa. Eric stood in awe as Harvey Walters crushed men with his Ancient Stone and then Healed Horror. And I just used the Grim Memoir to just facilitate more card draw. Once again, it's not only for Daisy. I mean, I don't think a lot of people think it's only for Daisy, right? I don't think I'm trying to say anything that's unconventional or wacky here. The card is just, like, really good baseline. And I think that this is just, like, me kind of discovering that in gameplay over this year. Because this last year, like, you get Scarlet Keys, we got Scarlet Keys late in 2022. And being able to, like, play with it over a full year really just made Grim Memoir shine. And I feel like this is going to be a staple going forward. By the way, do shout out to Past Justin, Eureka, and Burning the Midnight Oil are in each of my secret decks that I've showed so far in this video, which is absolutely killer. Are they going to be in the next one? We're going to find out because we have a Daisy deck too to show all of you. So yeah, so let's see this Daisy deck. So this one, look at that, has Burning the Midnight Oil and has Eureka. Who could have seen that coming? So this was a deck that I brought to we played Beard's Jekyll and Hyde standalone scenario on Halloween. And this deck was... I kind of just slapped it together because I needed to play all the cards. But this was just a great showcase for, you know, Daisy's ability to get the job done. Because this deck was actually pretty damn good as well. Grim Memoir here, it's the only 2 of because I actually don't mind seeing 2 of them. Because when one's empty, you can just play the other. Or you can even, like, pick it up with Library Docent, which this deck does, and then play another card, and then eventually play your Grim Memoir again to get those secrets back. I don't think it's a surprise that Grim Memoir is a good card, but it's also just, like, I think the card's very good, but I also think the card doesn't feel busted, right? Maybe I'm wrong in this, but I think, like, it's 3 resources is a bigger ask up front. But you feel like you get 3 resources out of it. I just think the card's pretty sick. I think the card's really sick. And it was easily one of my favorite cards that I played in 2023. Now, we have 1 card left. Our number 1. You ready? From Scarlet Keys, do you think you can guess who it is? I'll give you a few seconds. It's none other than Girish Kadakia. This man, this 4-cost, 4-experience man that soaks for 3 and 3. Takes up the ally slot. He can be assigned damage or horror dealt to other investigators at your location. This man, who during a skill test at your location, can lightning bolt to exhaust, and then that investigator gets +2 skill value, and if it's successful, you heal a damage or horror from him. This man is a fantastic ARKHAM Horror the Card Game card. He's really good. He's also just, like, to me, the perfect example of what a 4-experience card should be, you know? I think he's, like, obviously super powerful. He's going to really influence the game if he's out early, but he is just entirely, he feels entirely worth everything. He feels worth the XP cost. He feels worth the resource cost. He feels worth the ally slot. He does so much good Guardian stuff that the card is just like a perfect 4-experience card. I love playing him. I played him in more decks than I have to show you. I think I played Girish, so I think I played him in like 5 decks over the year. And I never got sick of this guy. He's just like really cool. His flavor is awesome, right? His art is fantastic. He's just like a winner chicken dinner of an Arkham Horror the Card Game card. And I'm curious to see, because like it's also one of those things, like I was going to say, I'm curious to see if I'm going to get sick of him. But because the card is just so perfectly, like, reasonable and good for what it asks of you, the 4 and 4 for resource cost and experience, I don't think I can get sick of him. Because, like, he's just, like, good. He's just good and fair and balanced. It's not like with Janae, you know? Where I feel like with Janae, I feel like I'm kind of, like, cheating the game a little bit here. I never feel that with Girish. Because I actually fail a lot of Girish tests, because most of the time, like, there's 2 ways you can go with Girish, right? You can either have him be your, make your big stat better, or you can help the small stats. And generally, I use him more for helping the small stats, so he's not healing all the time, but he is still passively healing enough throughout the game that this man will just make your whole team feel much more safe and much more successful. So I played him in the Sister Mary deck that we are just finishing up, I think tomorrow, the last episode, sorry, the next episode comes out. It's not the last episode, is it? No, it's just the next episode. It's just the next one. Yeah, because we got Black Stars Rise and Dim Carcosa, yeah. But I'm playing him in that one, and it's a blast. I played him in a Mark deck with Eric's Blind Run through Dunwich, I believe, and it was also a blast. But let's see some decks that I also got here as well. So, this was one that we brought to an epic multiplayer for Blob. This was a Synergies Zoe deck that just absolutely tore crap up. Just had a great time. Took so much. Like, Girish just nullifies a big risk that the encounter deck brings you. And you also don't need to necessarily build around Girish, which I think like makes him such a great piece for a lot of decks puzzles, because you can just put him in and he's good. Right, you don't need to like build around him. It's not like going back to Otherworldly Compass where I'm like, it's a fine card, but you have to build around it to make it great. That's not the case with Girish. Dude's just bringing it. So this was a parallel Zoe deck. Pretty simple stuff. Girish was here to just make sure I didn't die, but also like made my other stats better. More cards from it. But the other one that obviously, because he's from the same cycle, is our good friend Carson Sinclair. So this was a Carson deck that I brought to Call of the Plaguebearer, a custom campaign. And, yeah, who would have thought Girish was also just going to be good with Carson Sinclair? Because Girish can help other people, you don't aim to use it on yourself, right? You're using this on other people. And just basically making sure you don't die. And that's where Girish kind of just, you know, brings the noise and gets stuff done. Girish, great card. One of my favorites for the years. I obviously had the most to say about Otherworldly Compass just because that card was kind of the most exploratory card that I had over the year, but Girish was the card that I had the most fun playing, so he's my #1 card for 2023. Huge thank you to all of our patrons supporting the channel, and huge thank you to you for watching this video. I hope you had a great year playing Arkham in 2023, and I hope you have an even more fantastic year playing Arkham in 2024. And next week, we have our 200th list video. Whew! That's crazy, but we'll see you all for that. In the meantime, have a good one. Thanks for watching. And as always, GG's.